Hi, my name's David Linton, and I just wanted to give you a real life example of using the price targets. This is a stock that I actually bought a few months back. It's up about 25%. When I saw the stock, you'd say, well, what makes you want to buy that stock? And quite simply, I just pressed the T key on the chart, and basically, I had these price targets. And at the time, back in August when I bought the stock, I just had some. I had price targets from previously. I saw that the downside targets had worked, and I saw multiple upside targets. So it just was a case of saying, okay, here are the train tracks. Since then, it's done well. As I said, it's up about 25-30%, and it's not going to make fortunes. You're not going to make 30,000 pounds before breakfast or anything like that, but it's just an example of just finding these stocks that are steadily going up the hill. And this is certainly not a buy recommendation. It's run a long way, and I've now got to be on the lookout for when I sell it. And in fact, I've had this is the looking at the chart, and when I do the analysis, I start by looking at the long-term chart. So back in 2020 when we had the price at 50 cents. It's based in the US and Canada. Basically, I had targets then to $3, so a six-fold increase, and it actually went on to go to $6. So it did 12 times that increase in a year. And so I took note of that. And when this target was reached here, it had happened much faster than the two projection. And in fact, you can actually go and just adjust that projection and say, well, what happens if it was 1? And we see here that it's roughly 1-to-1. That means every one week it goes up 1%, and that's what it's been doing. Then the downside targets were met. And then we had this new upside target. Now, interestingly, and this is something I've got to be on the lookout for, is that we do have this situation where there is resistance potentially at the previous level. And it'd be very interesting to see if we can smash that. So that's the long-term view, and I've just got to be conscious that we might hit resistance. So if I then come to the medium term, as I say, this was the area where I bought the breakout with the targets. And then we've since then had new targets, and we're breaking to new highs. We're up another 5% today. It's had a very good run from $5 to over $6 in the last, since the last couple of weeks. So actually daily in the last week. So looking pretty good. But interestingly, if I put the negated targets on, which you can also show, I did have this downside target. Now I tend to ignore the negated targets. I tend to ignore the downside targets when I'm above the cloud. And so I was very conscious of this downside target. And if we moved below $5 and stayed there, then that target was activated, but the price didn't actually really sink lower. And I was watching the cloud as well. So quite an interesting example. And then, of course, the short-term targets were there to guide me as well. And again, these have been happening much faster. So I can just go and set these to 1 again. And you can actually see that actually it's half. And this is often the case on the shorter term targets. They happen faster. So you can adjust these targets and curve fit them so you know when they're roughly met. So quite interesting there that round 1.5 units hours this is to the downside. So those downside targets were met. I knew they were there, but I was prepared to live with them. And I'm glad I did because, of course, now, and that new short-term target's been met. So it just shows you one example of just how I'm using the targets. And you can do this for any chart, but what you want to be finding is stocks where the targets are pointing up the hill. And that's really the key of just using the targets. So I thought I'd just share that with you in a few minutes. Oh, by the way, if you want to try the targets course, just take a trial. We're doing trials at the moment. So you can see for yourself, do your own health check on your own investments. Well worth just playing. Costs you nothing. Just have a go. See what your own stocks are doing as well.